Chosen ones, someone is currently drowning in their own falsehoods and is going to reveal the most heartbreaking details of what they have planned to do to you. It's not just any confession, though. This is the total breakdown of a psychological warfare operation so intricate and well-planned that you will recognize you weren't only surviving unplanned drama when you realize its entire extent. The cosmos itself is testing you, and you passed with flying colors while your assailant annihilated themselves. This is the current situation. Someone is sitting there in utter fear, realizing that they can no longer conceal themselves behind the complex fiction they made up about your character. The burden of their lies has grown so heavy that it takes more energy to keep up the lies than they have. When the mental effort needed to maintain false narratives surpasses human capabilities, they're suffering what psychologists refer to as cognitive collapse. The hook that will blow your mind, however, is right here. They are not confessing out of guilt or sincere regret. They found something about you that alters everything, so it's fueled by pure, primordial dread. They now understand that they attacked more than simply an ordinary individual. They waged war on a person who had ties to forces they couldn't understand. These forces are now reacting in ways that make their initial strategy seem like a piece of cake. 3 terrible facts will be exposed by the confession they are going to make. First of all, every charge they leveled against you was a reflection of their own poisonous character. Second, they were envious of skills they couldn't comprehend or duplicate, which drove their entire effort. Thirdly, it's this section that keeps them up at night. You have never been more successful, charismatic, or spiritually connected than you are now, thanks to their attacks, which actually reawaken latent abilities inside you. What follows starts with their infatuation, builds via methodical deceit, reaches a tipping point with explosive disclosure, and ends with their total capitulation to forces they never ought to have opposed. By the conclusion, you'll know not only what they did, but also why the universe let it to occur and how it aided in your most advanced development. In fact, this began months or even years before you were aware that you were being attacked. This individual had been observing you as intently as a predator observing its prey. However, what they were actually seeing was your innate link to global flow, which both captivated and frightened them. They saw you bring chances to them that they had been battling for years to attain. They watched doors that are obstinately closed for them open for you. They saw how effortlessly and magnetically people gravitated into your energy. They failed to see that they were witnessing the resurgence of spiritual endowments and the reaffirmation of the divine essence of the soul. The fixation became hazardous at this point. They saw your achievement as something that had been taken from them, rather than as something to be celebrated or learned from. According to their perverted reasoning, the cosmos was a zero-sum game in which your victories equaled their defeats. They started to think that your blessings might somehow pass to them if they could bring you down. According to the confession, they began meticulously recording every detail of your life. Most significantly, they determined which individuals' views were most important to you after examining your connections, tendencies, and weaknesses. They were creating a psychological profile to better harm you rather than to comprehend you. The fact that they admitted to utilizing contemporary technology against you adds to the nefarious nature of this. They are confessing to utilizing sophisticated editing tools to modify photos and produce deepfake pictures. They especially studied Photoshop skills to fabricate proof of meetings, talks, and exchanges that never happened. Their use of very advanced technology shows that this was more than simply emotional blackmail. The purpose of this digital warfare was to deceive you into doubting your own reality. They're admitting that they made phony social media identities to fabricate proof of interactions and actions that only occurred in their warped imagination, in addition to spying on you. Innocent exchanges would be taken, edited out of context, and then used as evidence of your claimed wrongdoing, to make it seem as though you had said or done things that never happened. They even went so far as to construct chats with fake timestamps and altered metadata. Their deceit extends even farther in terms of technology. They acknowledge that in order to better imitate you in made-up situations, They researched your digital footprints, online behaviors, and communication styles. They were able to produce phony emails and messages that seemed to be from you by learning to imitate your writing style, language, and even your usual reaction times. The goal of this degree of digital identity theft was to make their falsehoods seem so real that even those who knew you well would start to question your morals. This is the first significant storyline twist, though. They totally overlooked the most crucial component, your spiritual protection, while they were occupied researching your outside life and crafting intricate digital illusions. Although they were unable to see the source, they witnessed the results of your heavenly connection. It was similar to examining the shadows on a cave wall without realizing that the fire was creating them. Their advanced technology was helpless against spiritual forces they were unable to comprehend or control. When they were aware that merely observing your accomplishment was causing them to become more psychologically unstable, the fixation reached a tipping point. They started to fantasize about other outcomes, situations in which they failed rather than succeeded, were ostracized rather than praised, and felt the same rejection and inadequacy that they felt every day. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of their psychological profile is what their confession exposes next. They started using kids and relatives in their anti-you campaign. They used these helpless souls as pawns in their psychological warfare if there were youngsters involved in your case, whether through joint custody, familial ties, or intimate connections. They are admitting that they used protective feelings and maternal instincts as instruments to purposefully sow discord around the welfare of the kids. They would spread rumors that your lifestyle choices were setting bad examples, that your energy was erratic around small children, or that you were somehow detrimental to their emotional development. They were aware that any perceived danger to children would cause the people who looked after these innocent beings to react in the most instinctive ways possible. According to the confession, they deliberately targeted family get-togethers, holidays, and special events, since these are the periods when emotions are running high and family dynamics are most susceptible to manipulation. They would instigate crises or issues that needed to be addressed right away during these priceless times, making sure their poisonous energy tainted even your happiest family moments. However, this is when their scheme went horribly wrong. Youngsters and children frequently have innate spiritual sensitivity that adults have learned to repress. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the Super Thanks button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but also the souls of many others through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's great design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Take action now. Share your blessings to exalt His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. They frequently felt that there was something off about this person's aura, even the kids they attempted to use as weapons against you. Children might avoid them out of habit, feel uneasy with them, or even publicly say that they didn't like this person without knowing why. Since innocence is completely protected by the cosmos, their attempts to enlist youngsters in their spiritual conflict had immediate and dire karmic repercussions. They started to have behavioral problems, emotional distance, difficulties with youngsters in their own lives, and a general feeling that the youth around them were separating from their energy field. At this point, the fixation became action. They wanted more than to watch you fail. Their goal was to be the mastermind behind your downfall. In order to demonstrate to themselves and the cosmos that your achievement was unmerited and that anybody with the cunning to plan your demise might take it away, they sought to manipulate your reality. The disclosure of how methodically they constructed a web of deceit around you is what makes their confession so terrifying. This was not random toxicity or impetuous jealousy. Psychological warfare carried out with military accuracy. They began by determining which of your connections were the closest to you and examining the dynamics of each. They discovered your family's worries, your friends' triggers, and your partner's fears. They studied human psychology in order to use your emotional weaknesses as a weapon, not to cure or assist. According to the confession, They started posing as the worried party in several partnerships. Your partner saw them as the buddy who had seen certain aspects of your conduct. Your pals expressed concern for your welfare and were the voice of reason to you. They presented themselves to your family as someone who was concerned enough to voice concerns about concerning changes they said they noticed in you. This is when their plan's first catastrophic mistake is revealed, though. They undervalued the intellect of those in your immediate vicinity. The same intuitive abilities that first attracted people to you started sending out warning signs about this person's intentions, while others started to notice something strange about the messenger. At first, some people believed their well-constructed stories. When they discovered that mild recommendations weren't having the desired effect quickly enough, the manipulation intensified. They started fabricating proof to back up their assertions on your personality. According to the confession, they staged chats, altered images, and even made up social media exchanges to make you seem guilty of things that simply occurred in their heads. 10 more falsehoods were needed to justify each untruth. With every fabrication, more complex justifications were required. They were entangled in a web of lies so intricate that spreadsheets and thorough notes were necessary to maintain continuity. They were becoming into the same thing. They said you were a manipulative, dishonest, and control-obsessed person. One very unsettling trend emerges from the confession. They were surgically precise in their targeting of your romantic connections. They methodically sowed doubts about your loyalty and commitment if you were in a couple. They would build scenarios that would arouse your partner's innermost fears and provide them with well-crafted tales about your said actions while you were away. They're acknowledging that they looked into your partner's prior relationship history, past traumas, and particular trust and abandonment triggers. They then used this psychological profile as a weapon against you both, fabricating crises and phony emergencies to see how far your relationship might go. They would produce fictitious proof of secret conversations, make up stories about you being spotted with other people, and even set up scenarios in which your partner would unintentionally find evidence of your alleged infidelity. However, their influence was not limited to fabricating stories. They're admitting that they purposefully circulated false information in your social circles to keep you away from possible love relationships before they ever started. They would approach people who were interested in you or who were interested in you, posing as worried pals and providing crucial details about your personality or previous actions. Their admission of fabricating rivalries and love triangles is the most perverse aspect of their romantic sabotage. They would portray themselves as someone who truly knew you in ways that others couldn't, or as a better option than your existing spouse. They were attempting to portray themselves as the remedy for the issues they had caused, rather than just the one who destroyed your relationships. They never realized that the same spiritual powers that preserve your whole path also safeguard genuine love relationships. Every relationship they ruined was either not intended for your best interests, or the interference actually made the bond stronger by exposing its underlying roots. Only those who could see through deceit would be allowed to stay in your energy field as a result of their attacks on your love life. The most unsettling thing they revealed in their confession is that they researched your spiritual ideas and practices in order to exploit your own spirituality against you, not to comprehend or relate to you. They especially studied spiritual protection, energy work, and manifestation in order to persuade people that you were abusing these techniques. As a chosen one, you will see the truth right away, but this is where it takes a turn that most people would find hard to accept. They didn't stop at psychological manipulation, as their confession shows. They fought you in a full-scale spiritual war. They studied and used a variety of spiritual assault techniques, believed that they may deplete your vitality, prevent your manifestations, and break your link to heavenly direction. They carried out rites intended to tie your prosperity to them and divert your benefits to themselves. They recruited others to join them in their spiritual assaults, claiming they were assisting in energy balance or imparting important teachings. Here's what they didn't realize about spiritual warfare, though. It is only effective against those who are not protected by God. Their negative energy was not only neutralized, but also converted into fuel for your spiritual development, since every spiritual attack they launched against you was met by powers so much greater than themselves. According to the confession, they started to encounter what can only be characterized as supernatural opposition. Because of inexplicable circumstances, their attacks would begin with confidence and momentum before dissolving into confusion and defeat. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be with you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the world's fleeting concerns. As the Holy Bible says, everything done in faith will be rewarded by God's abundant blessings. Luke 6 verse 38, like that mighty oak tree, our roots are deeply anchored in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stance we hold is secured by His power. And now, you have the opportunity to be a part of this blessing. When you click this Super Thanks button and make a $100 donation, this act will return to you 100-fold images of you surrounded by light beings whose attacks appear to be like throwing pebbles at a mountain since they were shielded by energy. When they woke up from these nightmares, they would have headaches, nausea, and a sickening feeling of dread that seemed to sink into their bones. When they saw that their initial attacks were not working, the spiritual battle intensified. They went to distant places to execute rituals they thought would be more successful, sought out more powerful practitioners, and spent money they couldn't afford on services meant to hurt you. They had increasingly dire repercussions with each escalation. This is their confession's astounding discovery. They started to believe they were up against something far more powerful than you. They began to feel as though forces they couldn't see or comprehend were watching them. They started to experience synchronicity in their lives, which seemed like warning signs. They would keep seeing the same numbers, run into the same symbols in unexpected locations, and have coincidences that seemed to be communications from a higher intellect beyond human comprehension. The most startling revelation of all is revealed by their confession. They had to contend with more than just spiritual opposition. In their day-to-day lives, they were encountering what can only be called supernatural intervention. Particularly when they were attempting to fabricate evidence against you, technology would fail. When they took screenshots of fake exchanges, their phones would collapse. When they were editing pictures to frame you, their computers would freeze. The same moment anyone attempted to publish anything disparaging about you online, their internet would go down. Beyond technology, the supernatural intervention intensified. They began to encounter what they characterize as improbable coincidences that appear to be intended to reveal their deceptions. They would construct a tale about you, and within hours, the individual would come across information that refuted their account. In one spot, they would plant fake evidence, only to find it had suddenly vanished or been replaced by something that exposed their deceit. The way their own secrets started to come to light whenever they attempted to reveal yours was even more unsettling to them. Information about their own dubious actions would somehow find its way into their social circles each time they try to harm your reputation. The cosmos seemed to be in perfect equilibrium. Others would learn a truth about them for each falsehood they uttered about you. After they confessed, they started experiencing terrifying bodily symptoms of their spiritual fight. They would perform rituals against you and then wake up with mysterious bruises. The moment they threw their bad intentions at you, they would become suddenly unwell. They started to see distorted images of themselves in mirrors, as though their own energy was getting so poisonous that it was impacting how they looked. Their confession's most horrifying admission concerns their developing realization that their attacks weren't just failing. With surgical precision, they were being diverted back to them. Their own romantic life would suffer from every hex they tried to cast on your relationships. Their professional journey would mirror every barrier they attempted to erect in your career route. They would experience every minute of loneliness they desired for you. Desperate to learn what powers they had unwittingly contested, they began studying karmic payback and spiritual protection. As they learned more about cosmic justice and spiritual rules, they came to understand that they had waged war against someone who was protected by God, and that God was decisively prevailing. Then, their meticulously built house of lies starts to fall apart at an accelerated rate. This wasn't a slow unraveling, as the confession makes clear. They were left frantically trying to contain damage that had already gotten out of control due to an unexpected, catastrophic exposure. It began when the individuals they had controlled started comparing notes regarding the tales they had been given. Inconsistencies that were inexplicable surfaced. Between tellings, details varied. The timelines did not coincide. The evidence they claimed to have seen either vanished inexplicably or never materialized. The confession shows the precise moment they started to ask awkward questions of their primary target, the person they had most successfully turned against you. This individual began to seek proof, insisting on specifics that revealed the falsehood of the claims and requesting to see the evidence in person. When they were unable to supply what did not exist, the house of cards started to collapse. The story's most dramatic climax, however, occurs here. There was no investigation or investigative work involved in the expose. Through spiritual insight, it took place. The one they had most effectively deceived started to get synchronistic signals, dreams, and intuitive insights that helped them uncover the true identity of the poisonous person in their lives. According to the confession, they were horrified to see connections they believed they had manipulated via deceit start to work against them. For the first time, the same individuals who had fallen for their falsehoods about you began to see them clearly. Even non-spiritual individuals started to feel uneasy around them because of the heavy, dissonant aura around their deceptions. When they discovered that other individuals had been recording their falsehoods from the start, their concern escalated to a crisis. Some had been recording talks, some had been collecting screenshots, and some had been exchanging notes on discrepancies they had observed. They were unaware of the existence of the witnesses who were watching and recording what they believed to be a covert operation. When they learned that some of their purported supporters had never trusted them at all, it was the last straw. Now is the perfect time to click the Super Thanks button on YouTube and share God's blessings. You can contribute to his plan and become a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you multiplied beyond your expectations. Remember, his protection and blessings are with you in every step you take and every donation you make. You become part of his divine plan. You are a powerful, radiant being, unshakable like his mighty rock. Witness God's miracles. Feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul and illuminate the world with his confidence and courage. Be blessed, and may the Lord's light guide your way. These individuals had been complicit, accumulating intelligence, and holding out for the ideal opportunity to reveal the truth. They came to the realization that everyone around them had been aware of their lies, but instead of taking action, they had chosen to watch them ruin themselves. Their admission of the financial and legal repercussions that were starting to pile up on them only serves to further exacerbate this betrayal. People started recording evidence for possible litigation since some of their deceptive strategies went beyond the bounds of the law. They may have committed identity theft by creating phony social media profiles. The altered photos and made-up chats can be considered harassment or slander. They may have conspired to cause emotional injury by having others carry out their spiritual attacks. They admit that because they were so focused on destroying you, they never gave the legal repercussions of their conduct any thought. However, a number of individuals they had influenced started seeking legal advice over the psychological harm resulting from their unintentional involvement in their deceit scheme. The group of individuals who had been given misleading information about you began to realize they had been duped and were being used as tools to forward the agenda of someone else. As they had to deal with possible settlements, legal bills, and damage control costs, the financial repercussions started to pile. However, the social exile they started to experience was worse than the money. As word got out about their deceptive tactics, they developed a nasty reputation that followed them everywhere. They made an effort to build new contacts, either personal or professional. They acknowledged that they made a valiant effort to steer the narrative as it changed against them. But they found that although falsehoods fade, truth endures forever. Every effort to downplay or to defend their conduct simply served to highlight how deceptive they are. Without the spiritual defense that had kept you safe from long-term harm, they were ensnared in the same web of lies they had spun around you. When they realized the full extent of their exposure, the confession shows their total psychological collapse. Not only had their deceptions been exposed, but their techniques, motives, and even spiritual assaults have been found and recorded. They weren't only exposed as dishonest. They were apprehended waging a methodical spiritual and psychological battle against an innocent individual. With the wrath of those who recognized they had been used and deceived, the very individuals they had persuaded to turn against you were now turning against them. Finding out that their fixation with you was now well known to the public was the most embarrassing aspect of their exposure. People started to perceive them as someone whose obsession and envy had pushed them to incredible levels of deceit and manipulation, rather than as a victim of your purported toxicity. They had turned into a warning about what happens when jealousy turns into spiritual conflict. We have now arrived at the moment when they have completely surrendered. They have run upon forces that have totally outclassed their capacity to carry on their attacks. Not because they discovered true regret. They're not only acknowledging their falsehoods, as the confession makes clear. The repercussions have grown intolerable, and they are pleading for forgiveness. They're going through what is known as karmic return in spiritual traditions. All the bad vibes they threw your way have come back to haunt them. Their reality is the seclusion they attempted to instill in you. Instead, the harm they tried to do to your reputation has come back to haunt them. They're always afraid and anxious because of the resurgence of the spiritual attacks they began. The confession describes how their life has devolved into a string of hardships and disappointments that precisely reflect what they attempted to fabricate for you. The opportunities they seek abruptly vanish. Their own poisonous tendencies damage the relationships they want to establish. Uncontrollable events cause the projects they begin to fail. They are personally experiencing what it's like to live without heavenly protection and direction. The most pitiful part of their current circumstances is revealed by their confession. They are now frantically attempting to repair the spiritual harm they have inflicted, not out of sincere regret, but rather out of fear of the growing repercussions. They are asking assistance from anybody who might be able to halt the karmic avalanche they have caused, including by visiting various places, paying for cleaning ceremonies, and contacting spiritual practitioners. However, they receive the same advice from all of the spiritual counselors they speak with. They assaulted a person who was protected by God, and sincere remorse and making apologies are the only ways to prevent the repercussions. The issue is that their admission shows they don't genuinely regret harming you. They only regret that they must deal with the repercussions of their actions against you. Their purpose is self-serving rather than really repentant, which is why their attempts at spiritual cleaning fall flat. They're admitting that they've attempted everything from costly spiritual rituals meant to balance the karma to sending heartfelt letters of apologies that they never mailed to even contacting your shared connections in the hopes that someone would speak out for them. However, even when manipulation is presented as spiritual exercise, the cosmos doesn't react. Their admission that they have been experiencing recurrent dreams in which they see you surrounded by creatures of light shielded by powers that make their attacks appear like throwing stones at a mountain is the most illuminating aspect of their confession. They hear a voice in these nightmares telling them they have two options. Real change may be achieved by admitting their mistakes or by enforcing harsher penalties until they learn their lesson. When they awaken from these nightmares, they are aware that the karmic strain increases with each day they put off accepting responsibility. Complete honesty and sincere remorse are the only way out of the spiritual pressure cooker they have created for themselves. Their ego is frantically attempting to avoid two things. This is the resolution's most potent element, though. You've been achieving prosperity, serenity, and spiritual strength that surpasses what you had before their meddling, while they've been drowning in the fallout from their deeds. They didn't only fail to hurt you with their strikes. Potentials that may have taken years to develop organically were awakened by them. Their developing realization that they could have unintentionally contributed to your spiritual development is seen in the confession. Every assault made you fortify your defenses. You learned to have greater faith in your instincts with each uncovered untruth. You grew closer to your heavenly source with each alone moment. They attempted to shatter you, but instead they revealed your actual strength. Success is more than just getting back to where you were before. It's better than anything you'd known before their meddling. It seems as though the world accelerated your opportunities and blessings to make up for their attacks. The doors they attempted to close were replaced by larger, better ones. They attempted to ruin connections in your life, but new ones came in that were more genuine and deeper. Their attempts at psychological warfare evolved into sophisticated instruction in protection and discernment as new levels of spiritual awareness were triggered. Their developing realization that they could have unintentionally contributed to your spiritual development is seen in the confession. Every assault made you fortify your defenses. You learned to have greater faith in your instincts with each uncovered untruth. You grew closer to your heavenly source with each alone moment. They attempted to shatter you, but instead they revealed your actual strength. Now that they can see the energy surrounding you that they previously couldn't, they're admitting the spiritual authority, the light, and the protection that identify you as someone selected for a certain mission. They know why nothing they did could really hurt you, why every assault made you stronger, and why the minute they chose to obstruct your path, their own lives started to fall apart. Recognizing that you were never guilty of whatever they accuse you of is the last component of their confession. All of your hunches about their personality were right. Every limit you attempted to establish was warranted. You were getting supernatural advice regarding the spiritual battle being fought against you every time you had a gut feeling, but were unable to substantiate it. Take a time to think about that. I have a very significant matter that requires your attention. Through this weekly Zoom call, we're sharing what we know about personal power, healing oneself, and healing others. No holding back, no filters. All of the esoteric secrets we have accumulated during actual years of spiritual practice have been subtly included. Those who are willing to follow the same route may now access the methods and knowledge that helped us go from controlled porn to conscious artists. Please accept this offer to become a member of Obsidian Inner Order and help us expand our platform so that we can reach more selected individuals who are awaiting activation. In addition to obtaining access to forbidden knowledge, joining the Obsidian Inner Order entails joining a movement that is rewriting reality itself. All of us benefit from it. The description contains a link. The events that have transpired have changed everything as we go back to the starting point. Your greatest spiritual activation was sparked by what started out as an attack meant to destroy you. Your light has only become brighter as a result of the preoccupation that was intended to extinguish it. Your integrity is now unquestionable since the falsehoods about you have been so thoroughly revealed. The individual who admitted to planning this campaign against you is really setting up the pieces for your coronation, but they believe they were playing chess. In fact, every action they took to weaken your strength made it more obvious. You learned about the limitless help that comes from divine sources as a result of every effort to separate you from your support network. One stage of your journey comes to an end with their confession, and another begins. In terms of the cosmos as well as humanity, you are now justified. The cosmos itself has attested to your innocence by exposing all of the falsehoods that have been spread about you. Forces of deceit and manipulation have put you to the test, yet you have triumphed without sacrificing your moral character or lowering yourself to their level. Their confession does not alter your identity. All it does is formally validate what the cosmos has always known. You are a chosen one, strengthened by cosmic justice, shielded by divine love, and destined for grandeur that cannot be stopped or lessened by human manipulation. Their acceptance of this reality amounts to their submission to forces they never ought to have opposed. You take with you the knowledge you've acquired from surviving spiritual combat, not the scars from their attacks, as you go after this vindication. You have established limits that cannot be crossed, discernment that cannot be deceived, and an unbreakable bond with supernatural protection. You are pure gold that has been created in the furnace of deceit. Your greatest initiation turned out to be what seemed to have been your saddest chapter. Your glorious beginning was written by the same person who attempted to create your terrible conclusion. Their admission of guilt is only one aspect of their confession. It proves that you're spiritually unbeatable. You are now a living example of how human influence cannot weaken the chosen ones. Believe the world will utilize even your opponent's attacks to further your best benefit, and that divine protection is genuine and active. They have fully confessed. Your vindication is perfect, and their submission is complete. They and everyone else have been freed by the truth. Even yet, it can take them years to comprehend that gift. When it comes to you, chosen one, this confession signifies a new beginning where your purpose and power are no longer in doubt. Darkness has tried you, and you have come out on top. Lies have assaulted you and shown you to be the truth. Their admission validates what you've known deep inside. You're not guilty. There is no amount of deception that could stop you from claiming your amazing destiny and protection. Through their admittance, the cosmos has communicated, and the message is audible in all dimensions. Your moment has come, and you have been selected.